After a racist gang targets a lone black woman walking home, they discover too late she's a highly trained former Navy SEAL who officially neutralizes their attack before letting the justice system deliver the final punishment they so rightfully deserve. As we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. And be sure to hit the subscribe button if you believe that everyone should be treated with respect, regardless of their status or looks. Welcome to Mr. Black's Stories. The unmarked sedan crept down Maple Street for the third time that night. Inside, four men scanned the quiet neighborhood, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of streetlights. "There she is," said Vince, the driver, nodding toward a woman walking alone. "Same one from the gym. Carrying a bag, too. Probably got cash." "She don't belong in this neighborhood anyway," muttered Derek from the back seat. "Let's teach her a lesson." What the men couldn't know, was exactly who they had chosen to target. Amara Wilson felt the car before she saw it. 6 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq had honed her situational awareness to a razor's edge. The vehicle had passed her twice already, moving too slowly, its occupants too interested. She continued her steady pace, turning down a less populated street, her mind calculating. At 34, Amara had been a civilian for just under 2 years. Before that, she had served as one of the first female Navy SEALs, completing the grueling training that broke even the strongest men. Her specialized skills in close-quarters combat had made her legendary within the teams. But tonight, she was just trying to walk home from the gym. She heard the car door open behind her. 4 sets of footsteps. The weight distribution told her they were average-sized men, overconfident in their walk. Without turning around, she knew they had formed a loose semicircle behind her. "Hey, you lost?" called a voice. Amara stopped, her gym bag hanging from her left shoulder. She turned slowly, keeping her hands visible. 4 white men stood before her, spread out in a tactical formation they probably didn't even realize they'd adopted. "I'm fine, thanks," she replied evenly. "Just heading home." The tallest one stepped forward. "This ain't your neighborhood, girl. People around here don't much like your kind moving in." Amara assessed him quickly. Leader. Early 30s. The slight bulge under his jacket suggested a weapon. The others were positioned to block potential escape routes. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Amara said, her voice calm. "I live 3 blocks from here. I'm just passing through." "Nah, I think you misunderstand," said the man, closing the distance between them. "See, you got something we want." He nodded toward her bag. "And we got something you need, a reality check about where you belong." The night air felt suddenly heavy. Amara registered multiple threats. The leader's hand drifting toward his waistband, another man moving to her blind spot, the third pulling something from his pocket. The fourth hung back, eyes darting nervously to the empty street. "I'm going to say this once," Amara stated, her voice dropping an octave. "Walk away. Now." Laughter rippled through the group. "Listen to her," hooted the man on her right. "She thinks she's tough." The leader grinned, revealing a gold tooth. "Last chance, hand over the bag and whatever else you got. Then maybe we just rough you up a little before letting you run back to where you belong." Amara sighed. She'd hoped to avoid this. She dropped her gym bag and adjusted her stance slightly. Nothing dramatic, just shifting her weight, centering her gravity. "Don't do this," she warned one final time. The leader lunged forward, reaching for her jacket with one hand while the other went for his waistband. It was the last conscious decision he would make that night. Amara moved with a speed that didn't register to the untrained eye. Her right hand intercepted his reaching arm, hyperextending the elbow with a precision that's had shockwaves of pain through his nervous system. As he buckled forward, her knee connected with his solar plexus, driving the air from his lungs. Before he hit the ground, she had already pivoted to face the next threat. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more, hit that subscribe button now. Don't miss out. The man to her right had pulled a knife. Amara's lips tightened, an escalation she couldn't ignore. He slashed wildly, expecting fear, expecting retreat. He received neither. Amara stepped into the attack, her forearm deflecting his wrist while her other hand clamped down on his knife arm. The sound of ulna and radius bones snapping was audible in the quiet street. The knife clattered to the pavement as the man dropped, screaming. The third attacker hesitated, witnessing the swift dismantling of his friends. That hesitation cost him. Amara closed the distance in 2 strides. A palm strike to the sternum, followed by a sweep of his legs, sent him crashing onto his back. A precisely placed foot on his throat communicated that any further movement would be unwise. The fourth man, the nervous one, had already turned to run. Amara let him go. 3 neutralized threats were enough. The leader struggled to his knees, wheezing. His hand finally found his waistband, pulling free a compact handgun. Amara moved coldly, efficiently. Her foot connected with his wrist, sending the weapon skittering across the asphalt. Before he could process this development, her hand had grasped his collar, and her voice was in his ear. "I gave you a chance," she whispered. What followed was a demonstration of anatomical knowledge that few outside specialized military units possessed. Amara manipulated pressure points and nerve clusters that sent the man into an agony beyond his comprehension. She didn't break anything vital. She wasn't looking to cause permanent damage, but she ensured he understood the depths of his mistake. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 40 seconds. Amara retrieved the handgun, ejecting the magazine and clearing the chamber with practiced ease. She pocketed the ammunition separately from the weapon. Then she pulled out her phone. 911? I need to report an attempted assault and armed robbery. Her voice was steady as she gave the dispatcher her location. 4 men. One armed with a handgun, another with a knife. They've been subdued. She ended the call and looked down at the 3 men on the ground. The leader was conscious but unable to move, locked in a pain response his brain couldn't process. The man with the broken arm wept quietly. The third stared up at her with undisguised terror. "The police will be here soon," she informed them. "I've disarmed and disabled you because you left me no choice, but you should know something." She knelt down, making sure they could see her eyes. "I used maybe 5% of what I'm capable of. I chose not to hurt you permanently. Remember that." Flashing lights appeared at the end of the street as patrol cars responded to the call. Amara stood patiently, hands visible, waiting for the officers to approach. She knew the routine. Detective Santos reviewed the security footage for the 4th time in his office. The camera mounted on the convenience store across the street had captured the entire incident in grainy but usable quality. "Play it again," said Captain Reynolds, leaning against the desk. Santos clicked the replay button. They watched in silence as the 4 men approached the woman, as she dropped her bag, as she systematically dismantled their attack with mechanical precision. "Jesus," muttered Reynolds. "Who is she?" Santos opened the file on his desk. "Amara Wilson, 34. Honorably discharged from the Navy 2 years ago." He paused. "Her service record is heavily redacted, but I've got a buddy at the Pentagon who confirmed what I suspected. She was one of the first women to complete SEAL training, multiple combat deployments, highly decorated." Reynolds whistled. "And these idiots tried to rob her because she was black, walking in their neighborhood," Santos replied, disgust evident in his voice. "According to their social media accounts, all 4 are members of a local group with white supremacist leanings. They've been suspected in a string of harassment incidents, but we've never had enough to charge them." "Well, we do now," Reynolds said, tapping the monitor. "Armed robbery, attempted assault, hate crime enhancements. The gun was illegal too, serial number filed off. The one who ran got picked up this morning," Santos added. "He's already talking, trying to cut a deal. Says they've done this before to discourage minorities from moving into the area." Reynolds shook his head. "They picked the wrong woman." "That's an understatement," Santos said, closing the file. "Ms. Wilson has declined to press additional charges, by the way. Says the existing ones should be sufficient." Generous of her. Maybe, Santos said thoughtfully. Or maybe she just doesn't want any more attention. 3 months later, Amara sat in the courtroom gallery, watching as the 4 men entered in handcuffs and prison jumpsuits. Their case had attracted significant media attention, partly because of their ties to known hate groups, partly because of Amara's background once it became public. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to announce the sentences. The leader, Vincent Mercer, received 15 years for armed robbery with hate crime enhancements, plus additional time for the illegal weapon. Derek Sandoval got 12 years for assault with a deadly weapon. The other 2 received slightly lesser sentences, but still substantial prison time. If you believe in accountability and justice, hit subscribe for more stories that will make you stand up and cheer. As the men were led away, Vince's eyes locked with Amara's across the courtroom. His face contorted with hatred, but beneath it lay something else. Fear. The knowledge that his worldview had been shattered by a woman he had underestimated in every possible way. Amara held his gaze until the door closed behind him. She felt no satisfaction, no joy in their punishment. Just a cold certainty that justice had been served. These men had thought themselves predators and discovered too late that they were prey. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for comments. Amara pushed past them without a word. There was nothing to say. The system had worked as it should. The men had made their choices and would face the consequences. 6 months after the incident, Amara still lived in the same neighborhood. She still walked home from the gym along the same route. Sometimes she passed neighbors who nodded in recognition, in respect, but mostly she was left alone, exactly as she preferred. The message had been sent, not just to 4 men, but to anyone who might follow their example. Prejudice carried consequences. Sometimes those consequences came in unexpected packages. And sometimes justice wore the face of those you least expected. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like and subscribe to the channel for more contents like this.